Hello, everyone. My name is Bruce McFarland. I'm a founding member of the Democratic Alliance for Action of Santa Clarita and have been president of the organization for several terms. Today, I'm here to conduct a brief Zoom interview, with one of our Democratic candidates. On behalf of the DAA, let me welcome Quaye Quartey, Democratic candidate for what has been known as the 25th Congressional District. Please say hello, Quaye.
Good morning, Democrats. Hello.
Thank you. All of our questions today are based on input from our members and are worded in a way that will hopefully motivate our candidates to reveal their true nature, purpose, and values. Please listen carefully and do your best to answer the question that is asked, and don't revert to stump speech rhetoric to avoid a direct answer. What happened in your life that made you become a Democrat, and when did that happen? 1 minute, please.
For me, being a Democrat is something that was started in my household of service. My father being an immigrant coming here from West Africa, a Christian, the minister's son, and my mother being a daughter of the Jim Crow South. So it's a matter of values for us. And that's something that I've learned with my four brothers in our household. So the Democratic values, fighting for freedom, justice, and equality for all, is something I recognize and I support. And that's the main reason why I'm a Democrat. And that's why I'm motivated to represent in the 25th district, if given the opportunity.
Great. Sort of going right from there a little bit, let's, if you could tell us, what kind of a Democrat are you? And you have 1 minute for that.
Yes. So for me, I served our country, being a native Californian. I left when I was 17 years old, went to a service academy, the Naval Academy, and was commissioned in 1997 and served for 20 years in 5 different continents, domestically and internationally, focused on most of the thorniest issues there. And the type of Democrat I am, I'm a national security Democrat, a common sense Democrat, someone that is working to provide the greater good for the majority of Americans, not the top 1%, not being a political pawn or someone that is focused on the minority group. I'm really focused on benefiting all Americans and working from the middle out. And that's who I am. And that's what I've done as a career servant leader in uniform for over 2 decades.
Great. So I'm going to give you 2 minutes to let you tell us about any recent volunteer, philanthropic, or activist activities you've participated in, political or non-political, and if you had any leadership role. When were you, when you did the activities, how much time did you devote, and what were your accomplishments? And like I said, 2 minutes.
Yes, as I just briefly mentioned, being a commissioned naval intelligence officer, that is where I've given everything I have. Same with my family. It's a family of service. My wife served in the Peace Corps in Togo. Our kids served with us as diplomats in Paris, France. So most recently, not to talk about the entire 20-year career, but most recently, 4 years as a diplomat in Paris, France, and 1 year in Cameroon, served around the clock 24/7 for the American people, for our Western allies, and more importantly, for our way of life. So we have the fight for democracy. It just doesn't start here in our local community. It's a fight that we fight for America, but we fight globally. So as a soldier in uniform, I've been in leadership positions as the lead person on the cyber front, as a naval officer, but more importantly, when I was in Cameroon, West Africa, as the senior defense official. I was a senior person on the ground as a commander in rank that led all military activities against Boko Haram, ISIS West Africa, and fighting for refugees coming from the Central African Republic, but also fighting for people in the Anglophone region that has a civil war going on. So those leadership opportunities, once again, was ingrained in me. It's in my DNA to put country over party, over politics, and do what's right for everyone involved and for the mission. And thankfully, I worked with a lot of great women and men that made me even better than what I am, because we worked as a team and we're complementary. And I gave them the tools to do what they needed to do. And they responded to my leadership, and we made great things happen for our country abroad. And that is really the highlight of my career thus far, is serving our nation as a commissioned officer in some of the places that most people can't point at to on a map. But it was an honor and a privilege to serve with such great women and men that gave everything they had for our country.
Perfect. Um, so this next question might fit right in. As kids, many of us admired the work of superheroes. And today it seems we need superheroes more than ever. You have 1 minute to tell us about your superpower.
Yes, to be honest, I think my superpower really is humility. Understanding that I've never been the best or the greatest when I played football in high school at De La Salle, a powerhouse there, or at the Naval Academy as well, or serving in the military. There's always been, special women and men that have done extraordinary things that just push me to work even harder. Because I learned that in order to be a great leader, you got to be a great follower. You got to be able to follow the other person and follow their lead so that it's once your turn to lead, you understand how to lead and be a compassionate leader. So humility to me is my superpower, and my wife and my kids keep me humble, and I appreciate them and I love them for it.
Okay, so the next question is a follow-up because superpowers are great. So I'd like you to take another minute and regale us about a specific time in your life when you used your superpower to accomplish something good. 1 minute.
Yes. So for me, working on a ship forward deployed in the Western Pacific was a very daunting task for me. I was newly married. My daughter was just born. I was gone for 3 months at a time. My wife lived in Japan, didn't speak Japanese, and she had to cope. So being humble to the mission and understanding my place to focus in on our mission to go from the southern tip of India all the way up to Vladivostok, Russia, down to Australia, that was the most important thing for me to do as a leader on the ship, instead of being selfish and thinking about my family and my wife and my desire to be with my newborn daughter. That was something that I had to embrace. And I learned a lot from it, and I grew from that moment. And my wife showed me incredible strength as she built an ecosystem to take care of herself and her
10
daughter,
seconds.
keep our family intact. So I'm very appreciative of that. And that's a thing I can look back upon very proudly.
Thank you. Specifically, when did you decide to, and what happened to convince you to run for this office? 1 minute.
Quite simply, like most Americans, I'm saddened and frustrated by the trajectory of our country, and people like Mike Garcia have encouraged me to be in this race. As you know, I served for over 20 years, gave everything to my country, coming from a service academy, and just seeing the insurrection and fellow diplomats being browbeated, I knew I had to do something, because there's not enough good people in our country. We need to make sure people are excited about public service, that young people are more hopeful and less hopeless. And I'm hopeful that if this community embraces me and gives me the opportunity, I can encourage that next generation. We can do that together. We can arise to the occasion and ensure that in a district that's Biden plus 10 points, a Democrat sits in this seat. We have the power. We have the ability. I'm motivated like no other. And it's very disruptive and discouraging
10
to see
seconds.
that Mike Garcia is sitting here.
Great. District residency seems to come up in nearly every election cycle. We would like to know where you currently live, how long you've lived there, where you lived before that, and what significance should residency have to a voter? And you have 1 minute.
Yes, I won't speak for voters as far as the significance. Each and every person can answer that question on their own. But as far as my personal story, as a native Californian, my wife's a native Californian, served for over 20 years. When I left this country to serve our country abroad, I immediately came back to California to use the GI Bill to retool. And we relocated to Southern California. And then once the COVID pandemic started clearing up, we relocated here in late spring. So we live in Valencia very happily. It's a beautiful place to start the next chapter of our life. My kids are in school here. My wife lives here. It's very multicultural. It's very, very open, and they have blue ribbon schools. So it's an awesome place for us to finally choose our destination after 20 years and countless moves that were ordered by the US government. So we're very happy to be here. We're very blessed to be here, and we're very hopeful to grow with this community and be a pillar in this community moving forward, because it's such a beautiful, wonderful, open area that we enjoy thoroughly.
Thank you. If you're fortunate enough to prevail in the primary election, what are your top 3 or 4 action items in your plan for beating the popular Republican incumbent? So we're looking for, the political action plan to beat Mike Garcia? 1 minute for that.
First and foremost, this community thinks that I'm the leader that they're looking for, that they haven't seen since Katie Hill. I'm excited to move forward because there's so many things that we can do. And it all starts with all the things that the far right told Mike Garcia to ignore. When we look at, permanent child tax credit, when we look at job creation, we look at how he turned down the infrastructure bill, when we look at the fact that we have an opportunity here to bring industries into the Santa Clarita and Antelope Valleys, going from energy, infrastructure, media,
okay,
healthcare.
I'm gonna interrupt you. I'm gonna give you. I'm gonna let you restart that a little bit. But what I'm looking for is your political action plan, and all you're telling me is what you believe. And how are you going to? What's your plan to beat Mike Garcia?
So you want to know what am I for? What are the 3 to 4 things that I want to accomplish moving forward? Correct?
No. How are you going to beat Mike Garcia? What's your political action plan?
Our strategy?
Yeah. How are you going to beat him?
So you want me to tell us our strategy? Yeah. Okay.
And I'll give you a full minute to do that again, because yeah, you have things that you believe in, which probably most Democrats believe in, and that's fine. But what are the action items in your plan for beating Mike Garcia?
Understood.
Go ahead.
Yes. So our plan to defeat Mike Garcia starts with offering contrast. I believe that when he ran in 2019 and 2020, he used his background in such a way that I believe that I match up very well with him. Like in politics, it's all about matchups. There are no preordained outcomes. So I look at my ability to, as a veteran, as a person of color, as someone with integrity and character you can rely upon. And I believe as I talk to much more people in the Santa Clarita and Antelope Valleys to let them know who I am, what I stand for, what I'm fighting for, to bring representation to this community. Also, we understand that this district is a Biden plus 10 district, that there are voters here. We have the votes. It's a matter of energizing and exciting people through social media, through paid communications, and other means to know that we exist, that we're a viable option, and that we are someone that they can trust and rely upon to get the job done, not only in this community, but also in Capitol Hill.
Okay. So now I'm going to give you another minute to follow up and to address the question, what makes you think you have what it takes to execute a winning strategy against the popular incumbent Republican?
Yes, sir. So based upon where we're at today, I know I'm a fighter, I am trustworthy, I'm a hard worker, and we're building a very multicultural, diverse community of allies. Since I've been in the race in June 3rd, outraised every Democrat in the field by over $160,000. Last quarter, outraised everyone in the field by over $80,000. So we believe the fundraising is a big part of this, because if we're able to fundraise, we can show that we have a network to bring resources to this community when we win in November. And that's the most important thing, to bring resources and opportunities to create jobs, to deal with childcare, to get a full workforce back on its feet, but more importantly, to have affordable housing and true opportunity for all Americans going from there. So I believe with those qualities and that skill set, that gives us a tremendous opportunity to defeat Garcia at the polls and turn this district blue and show that it truly is a Biden plus 10 district.
Okay. So if you're elected in November, what specific issues important to the residents of Santa Clarita would you like to address and solve in your legislative sessions? And you have 2 minutes.
Yes. So when I look at this issue, I look at a lot of the things that the far right ordered Mike Garcia to ignore. What are those? First and foremost, it's job creation in the Santa Clarita and Antelope Valleys. We have to fight back against inflation. We got to, reopen the ports. We get the supply chain moving again. And that starts with leadership, not someone that's playing the politics. Secondly, I think clean electricity and clean transportation and affordable housing is critically important to the people in this community. Child tax credit and affordable childcare. Homelessness is something that plagues this community and the entire county as well, looking at the state. And that's something we got to make sure that Home First is the first action that we take. We get people off the streets, we get them mental health care, drug addiction care, but also giving them the ability to further themselves with education and trade schools so they can become much more self-efficient and stay off the streets. And next, when I look at this, healthcare, 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 affordable access to comprehensive, timely healthcare for our seniors, for our veterans, for our unhoused. I look at my mother, who was just celebrated her 68th birthday last month. Dental, hearing, vision, that's something that I would definitely fight for and continue to push for. And then when I look at the issues here in this community, the tension between local law enforcement and minority communities, that's something I definitely want to address. Someone that's been in uniform for over 2 decades, supporting military operations, I can understand both sides of the equation, but also as an African-American that was face down on the streets in New York City when I was 17-year-old, because I fit the description. So these are things that I want to bring both parties together, take the passion out of the conversation, and find enduring and lasting ways in order to bridge the gap between what's going on right now and make sure that we can go and pass laws so that another George Floyd incident does not happen on our watch in our community.
Great, thank you. I have 2 yes/no questions. First, do you commit here and now that neither you nor your campaign will disseminate any false information about any Democratic candidate?
I'm a person of integrity. Again, coming from a service academy, a God-fearing Christian.
Is this just a yes or no?
Understood. This is something that it's not in my DNA to be fake or false and lack integrity. So
that's a yes. You commit not to disseminate any false information.
Yes, I commit not to do that.
So the second question is, will you commit here and now to end your campaign, withdraw your name from the ballot if possible, and actively support the California Democratic Party endorsed candidate in your district if it's not you?
To withdraw right now?
No, not now. After the pre-endorsement, if there is a California Democratic Party endorsed candidate in this district, if it's not you.
I will let the voters in this community decide who's going to move forward, and I think that's what the primary election is for. So I'm supportive of going through the primaries, letting the voters decide who's going to be the candidate.
That's good. So I'm sorry, but that's all the time we have for today. And I want to thank you so much for participating in our interview. And I hope you will stop by the Democratic Alliance for Action frequently and keep us informed about your campaign.